This is the Haulin Assets podcast, where we show you how to start and run your own trucking company. Ever wanted to go out on your own? Follow Chris as he goes through the highs and lows of running on his own authority.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Haulin Assets podcast. This is episode number 92. I am Craig, your host, and over there, he is...
Chris,
here's what I want you to do, Chris. For those listening on the podcast, you won't be able to see this, but if you are watching on YouTube, you're going to see the worst ugly Christmas sweater of all time.
I don't know if I'd go
Chris,
that
just
far.
bend up a little bit.
Is the mic in the way?
Yeah. I want to see. That is Santa defecating into a chimney whilst reading a newspaper. So I didn't have an ugly Christmas sweater to match it, so I went classy.
Yeah, you look like a college professor.
I've got the shawl collar, I've got the elbow patches. I'm looking very cozy for this late December episode. But today we're talking about things more important than the holiday spirit, Chris.
I don't know. I don't know about that one. Yeah, maybe, possibly. When people ask me about my shirt, so we just had a Christmas party for one of my businesses, and I figured I'd just leave it on because it'd be fun to have on the show. But yeah. I tell everybody, some people get gifts from Santa, some people get coal. People who are on the extra naughty list, it's kind of an exclusive list that I am a member of. This is what they get.
It's I'm not well pleased by this sweater. It is horrific. It is truly horrific. So today we are getting into the numbers for November. This is our final episode of 2021. So we're going to be talking about November 2021 numbers now that those are all in and we're ready to talk about them. Now, we have a few things to go over before we get to the profit and loss, etc. Chris, why don't you kick us off with what you wanted to start with?
So today I kind of wanted to start with, we got a Facebook comment from Jose, and it's actually a really good Facebook comment. I don't agree 100% with it, but he was talking a little bit, and it's got me thinking a little bit about what he's saying and, kind of life and business in general. But, he basically came back. It's in reference to it's an episode we did about 20 episodes ago. I think it was episode 73. And he was talking about I referenced a book called The Top 10 Distinctions Between Millionaires and the Middle Class.
Okay.
By Keith Cameron Smith.
Okay.
And what he kind of did was he took a little bit of an issue with it.
This is Jose.
Jose.
Okay.
Yeah. He says it's problematic to stereotype about people's socioeconomic status, which I agree. And that, quite frankly, it's disconnected point of view from a millionaire, which I do agree to a certain point. But the book, it's the distinctions between millionaires and the middle class, not necessarily millionaires and the poor. I grew up middle class. And so I would consider myself for the most part fairly, self-made. I paid myself through college. I joined the military to help with that. I did a few things that got me to where I'm at. So it's not like I was in the same class that I guess you would call me now as I was before. And then he kind of goes on and said that, you can't say that people work multiple jobs to make ends meet, are comfortable living like that. And I agree. And it appears that it appears that he fails or I fail to talk about why upward mobility is so hard for those in lower classes, because trying to sustain oneself, let alone a family, makes it extremely difficult to take risks like starting a business. And I totally agree with that. It is, especially when you're just trying to kind of make ends meet and feed the family, and you're already working 2 jobs doing that. It's really hard to make that leap into the kind of the next class. But I kind of look at my great grandpa on my father's side. Sometimes making those generational or those socioeconomic shifts are generational, and it takes a while. Like my great grandpa or my grandpa grew up in really meager means, and he kind of got his family into the middle class, and hopefully I'm getting my family even higher than that at a minimum upper middle class. And So I see where you're coming from, Jose. I totally agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I also think people need to realize that, we're kind of to a certain extent, we're in control of our own destiny. And there are people who have made it from, a point where they're wondering how they're going to get their next meal to being very successful. And it's one of those things that it takes determination. I think,
and it to Jose's point, there's risk involved, and it's really tough to take that risk. And sometimes that risk pays off, and sometimes it doesn't. And I'm sure for every, what's his name, Keith something, for every Keith Cameron Smith, we could probably find plenty of people who took a gamble and it didn't pay off. So I think it's a perfectly fine point.
For sure, absolutely, and I really appreciate him making that comment, even though he's kind of disagreeing with me a little bit, because it makes me,
man, Chris.
Yeah, I know. It makes me kind of think and become retrospective on things, but ultimately, I think with the podcast, one of the things that I'm hoping that the podcast does is help people make that transition and get into a better socioeconomic situation than they are right now. Whether would consider yourself, kind of in the lower realms or the middle realms or the upper realms, hopefully this podcast can help you improve from where you are right now.
Right. Yeah. It's not easy. And it is risky sometimes, but ultimately, no reward without a little risk, and sometimes a lot of risk, and it's hard. And if it's not the right time for you, I mean, you've said this many times before. We're talking about tips that can help people. It's not like every single person out there driving a truck right now needs to jump off the high dive and do the things you're talking about. For some people, this podcast is going to be preparatory to their journey to eventually taking that step, right?
And maybe it's helping your kids with it. It's maybe it's because I think one of the things that I would say that I have been exposed to that has really been a big part of helping me make that transition, and that a lot of people aren't, is I've seen people around me do it. Like I saw my grandpa go from one situation to another situation. I've my parents have talked about it. They've brought me up. And I think having that example and having people instilling that mindset in you that it can happen, that you can get better, is really more so than anything one of the contributing factors that have given me that attitude and really kind of that, I don't know what you call it, the mental ability and desire to do that. And a lot of times people aren't exposed to that, like especially in those lower rungs of our society, they're not exposed to that. And I think that in a big sense holds people back as much or more than anything else. And if people disagree with me on that, I'd love to hear what they think.
Yeah. And that's a sincere thing. So what you left out of Jose's comment was when he said, love the podcast at the very beginning and also at the end, keep up the good work.
Well, thank you. Yeah, he did say that.
I guess my point just being, we appreciate the comment, and actually we love thoughtful comments like this. It's not, how dare you disagree with something Chris brought up.
And I think that's a good point. Like, I think he, like, I took that comment from him as super sincere.
Yeah.
And I really, really appreciate that. It's always good to hear other people's point of views and perspective on things. It seems like in society these days, we can't take other people's disagreeing point of views and have a good conversation about it, or still like care about the person. It seems like you either agree with me or I hate you. And I hate that. Like, I don't like that.
I mean, well, he hates me a little bit, everybody. So
he likes me. Jose likes me. He doesn't like you.
That's fair.
So anyway, Jose,
fair.
Thank you. And one more thing that I want to say is, like, another thing that kind of goes with this is a comment that I think I've made before that I really like, that I've heard Dave Ramsey say is, it's again, it's kind of this controlling your own destiny. I think to a great extent we are in control of our own destiny. And he says that something along the lines of people worry too much about what's going on in the White House and not enough about what's going on in their house. And so, like, we need to not worry so much what the government's doing, what the powers that be around us are doing. What's going to have a bigger impact on our life is what we do.
Well, there you go. I feel like you need if you drop my mic, I'm gonna be very upset. But I'll find you another one.
These aren't the kind of mics that you drop.
No. It's okay. So anything else on that topic? That was pretty heavy stuff.
It was pretty heavy stuff.
I don't want
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Merry Christmas
or Happy Holidays, however you celebrate.
Yeah, no, we don't want to be exclusive, Chris.
No.
All right, but we should talk about numbers.
We should.
Miles, money, etc. How are things going? Now, as I recall, October was a phenomenal month.
Yeah.
Rates are starting to pick up, holiday shopping, etc., etc.
So was September.
Right. September was gangbusters as well. How did we do in November?
Not quite as good as those 2 months, but still a very respectable month.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So not quite as good. Let's start with miles run with 4 trucks out on the road all month, right?
Yep.
Okay. How'd we do?
44,905 miles.
11,000 miles a truck. Hey, that's pretty good.
Pretty consistent with what we've been doing.
Okay. All right. So let's see. That's miles total miles run. How much of that was Deadhead?
And this was a little lower than normal. 2,061, which is 4.6 miles.
Okay.
So I think that's actually, I went back and looked at the historic numbers. That's the best we've had in over 6 months.
Okay, very nice. All right. So 44,000 miles got a total revenue number of what?
115,992 miles or dollars, which is actually the lowest we've had since we've had 4 trucks running.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is kind of surprising.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to get into what contributed to that,
We
but
will.
I think we should talk about what's the all-in rate per mile then.
$2.58.
Okay, $2.58. Now it has been better recently.
It
if I
has,
recall.
yeah. This is
not a bad number.
It's not it's a good number overall, but again, it's another one of these things that has kind of surprised me a little bit. It's actually the lowest we've had since July and August. Those two are both right around that same amount, which is unusual. Usually November is one of the highest when you have a higher rate per mile. Okay. And I think there's kind of some contributing factors to that. One of them is so it's kind of interesting. And this overall, our mileage per truck is about where it's been, maybe 1,000 miles less. But we essentially had 3 of our 4 drivers take off basically a full week around Thanksgiving, which is
normal. Well, in other industries, I should say.
In other industries, it may be. And in trucking, I would say a full week is probably not normal.
Yeah.
But that's okay. They wanted it. They've worked hard. We were fine with them taking it. But that's just kind of some of the reasoning behind, I think, some of those lower numbers. With that being said, it's still something I will kind of want to keep my eye on, especially the rate per mile. You know, the fact that guys were off a little bit, it may have contributed to the lower rate per mile because we may have had to take lesser paying loads to get somebody home at a certain period of time.
Right.
And so that all impacts it. But it's still unusual to see that happen in November. And so I'm kind of wondering, all right, do I need to keep my eyes open? Is the strong freight market that we've been having starting to turn? I think it's way too early to tell that. But, you know, this is one of those things that kind of makes you think, I'm going to kind of keep my eye on things over the next couple months and see what happens.
Right. Yeah. It's a little signal flare. Want to keep an eye on it. Okay.
Yep. No,
sounds
definitely not time to get all freaked out about things, but definitely it's one of those things you're going to want to keep your eye on for the next little while. So stay tuned.
And, you've talked, if I can go back to the vacation issue, you've talked in the past about, as a business owner, there are things that you can't necessarily control, or that, I mean, maybe you can control them to a certain extent, but you also want to be a good boss and not say no to somebody's vacation request if at all possible. But that's kind of, we've talked in the past about, you don't know what next month is going to bring. That's why savings is so important. That's why having your financial house in order is so important. So that if it's, hey, this is November, we could have had a little bit better month, but some guys wanted some vacation. And you know what? We were in a position to say, no problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. And you should be. I mean, that's responsible business ownership, is to be in that kind of position so that, you don't have to make business decisions that affect other people's well-beings because you haven't managed your business well.
Exactly.
And that makes for a bad situation for everybody.
Right. So All right. So the total revenue then you said was 115 or just shy of 116,000.
Right.
What about profit?
$25,499.06.
Sounds pretty sweet to me.
So it's still pretty good. It's about 10,000 less than it had been the 2 previous months, but 25,000 for 4 trucks in a month is pretty good.
Yeah, that sounded pretty great to me. So, all right. So all in all, a good month, but definitely some things that you're watching out for. Is there anything else that contributed to the rate per mile, or any repairs, anything weird happened this month other than just kind of an odd November schedule wise?
So those things wouldn't affect the rate per mile.
Well, no, okay. I'm sorry, Craig. The profit. Sorry.
Yeah,
you
so
know
the profit. Yeah. So there were a few things on the profit and loss statement that kind of stuck out to me this month. So first and foremost, maintenance and repairs were actually a little bit not crazy low, but a little bit on the lower end of what we're used to seeing, around $3,000 combined maintenance and repairs. So that's a little lower, but not too low. The tolls is one thing that's really kind of starting to creep up on me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So now this is something out here on the West Coast we don't deal with nearly as much as, say, the Northeast. So tolls.
Yeah. So we ended up spending, I think it was about it. I don't know the exact number, which kind of I don't really like, because what we've been doing is every time pre-pass is what we use for the tolling system. And every time a pre-pass bill comes in, we've just allocated $20 towards the equipment and the rest of it to tolls.
Okay.
Well, what's happened in the last little bit is because we've added more trucks, they've started billing us weekly instead of monthly. And so we're paying the $20 or allocating the $20 towards the equipment once a week when it's really only $20 a month. And so we're a little bit off in our, I think our tools and equipment budget is a little high and tolls is a little lower than it should be. So my gut tells me, even though tolls shows somewhere around 1,500, it's probably closer to 1,800 for the month, which is definitely higher than it has been. And so it's one of those things that we may need to kind of keep our eyes on. We don't have a really good system for kind of managing and controlling tolls, because some of them are unavoidable. Some of them make financial sense, but some of them not so much. And that's, we talked a little bit about in the last podcast about our annual goals and kind of making things scalable. This is probably something we ought to add to that list of, how do we handle tolls?
Sure. Now, this is actually something that I want to ask you a little bit about from the perspective of one of your drivers. Is the issue of tolls, is this something that they are paying attention to? They know how much the toll is. They know how much their truck is costing in tolls every month. I guess I'm asking because if somebody out there is an employee driver and thinking of taking the plunge, is this an issue they need to learn about, or is this something they already know because they see it every day?
I think most drivers don't. I mean, they've got a general understanding of it, but not as good of an understanding as they would want to have if they're going to own their own company. And they're the ones that are actually paying the toll bills. Yeah. Because there's a lot of situations where you may save 10 miles and 15 minutes by taking a toll road, but it's going to cost you $20 to do that. Probably not worth it. And so just being able to understand, kind of the cost benefit of the tolls. Sometimes if it's going to save you, 15 miles and an hour, and it's going to cost you $20, that's probably worth doing.
Right.
But, it's being able to make a good decision when it makes sense. Pay the toll when it makes sense. Avoid it when it doesn't.
Okay, interesting. This sounds like an entire episode at some point to really dig into how tolls work and how to smartly manage them.
Yeah,
right?
we probably could. So I would say 2 things. Like, people that are listening to this episode, I'd love to hear how you manage your tolls, because that's one thing that I feel like I could probably do better and learn more about. So I'd love to hear other people's perspectives on it. And then two, yeah, give us an idea if this is an episode, the tolling thing is something you'd like to know more about.
Absolutely. Okay. Any other takeaways from the P&L that you want to go over?
Yeah, there's a few things. So and this one's kind of minor. It's probably just to the tune of a couple $100, but we're still incurring a few expenses for truck number 5, even though truck number 5, we haven't taken possession of it yet. And it's still stuck somewhere between us and the manufacturer, probably still waiting on a computer chip.
So what kind of expenses are you incurring? Is it did you already sign up for insurance and all that stuff?
Not insurance, but we did sign up for got the pre-pass. We ordered a handful of things early because everything, the supply chain wise, is just, you never know when you're going to get it. So, like the pre-pass thing and the ELD and a handful of other things. And so it's just kind of stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to pull out from that report?
One more thing. Our washout. So when on our profit and loss statement, if you look, I've got a line item that's washouts, and that kind of actually misrepresents things a little bit because it's washouts and also truck and trailer washes, and I don't really distinguish between the two because I don't want a profit and loss statement that's got 50 different line items for every little thing. It just gets too complicated. So I've got those combined in one, and that's kind of increased a little bit as well. I think it's probably more, it's wintertime and trucks get dirtier a lot faster and they're probably just getting washed more. And it's the first time we've had 4 trucks in the wintertime. And so that's probably more what it is. The
numbers are just making your eyes pop a little bit.
Yeah. And so I'm not overly concerned about it. But again, one of those things I probably want to keep my eye on a little bit.
Yeah. Is this where we go on a rant about sand instead of salt? Or,
I don't know that I have a huge, I probably should have more of an opinion on that, but I'm not a passionate sand or salt guy.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, fair enough. Chris, anything else from the numbers this month? Solid month, not mind-blowing, but solid. Anything else you want to talk about from this?
I think that's it.
Okay.
I don't even have an impact tip for this month. Yeah. Or this episode. So, sorry.
So, no, why, Chris, this is your Christmas present to the world that this episode is only, 20, 25 minutes long, something like that.
Yeah. So is the Christmas present that it's short?
That's right. Yeah. They get back to their life.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Unless people love, for some reason, our witty banter. I don't know. Whatever. I could tell you another story about me as a teenager or something.
Well, there you go. Yeah. If you have one that's as good as the last one, man, that was killer. That was a good one.
I have so many stinking stories, man. I have so many stories. All right. Well, maybe we'll tell a story, but for now, we're going to call it for this episode. And thanks for coming in, Chris. And thanks everybody else for listening. And I'll see you later.
Yeah, we'll see you next episode. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, however you celebrate. Hope you're having a good end of your year.
Absolutely. Enjoy 2022, everybody.
See you then.
Do you want me to tell a story?
If you've got a good one, yeah. Okay. I feel like I've got it since we're starting a story. I'm getting a little more comfortable on the couch. I'm gonna kick my feet up and sit back. So entertain me, Craig.
Let me tell you. So, Chris, I'm a city boy. All right. I grew up in
You didn't milk cows and move pipe like I did?
Believe it or not, I have milked cows and I have moved pipe. My dad grew up as a spud farmer in eastern Idaho. So I've done all these things. Just not
regularly.
Not on the reg, as they say. So yeah, definitely I am a child of the suburbs. Let me tell you about the time I slaughtered a chicken. Okay. In a bathroom. So this was in France, 2006 in France. This would have been July. So do you remember the bird flu epidemic?
Yeah, you bet.
It was a big thing back in 2006. And because of the bird flu, the U.S. put an embargo on European fowl. Okay. I'm living in France at the time and just working as a missionary. So it's me and my companion. We're always together, us two. And then there's another companionship of missionaries that lived in the same apartment. So me and my companion go out, and one day we're in the bus and we get a call. Back in the early days of cell phones, Chris, we get a call from the other companionship. You guys have got to get down here. It was like kind of the city hall It's kind of on the outskirts of downtown in this town. We were in Rennes, France, for anybody who is keeping track. And we get down there. The bus is driving. We're getting pretty close. We're a mile out. The bus is driving along this road, and there's a chicken running along the sidewalk, just like booking it down the sidewalk, kind of keeping pace with the bus. It was the most amazing thing. It looked incredible. And what in the world is this? The bus turns the corner. Turns out that chicken had escaped, and there was a field full of 20,000 chickens. 20,000 chickens. Okay.
So this one got out and he flew the coop, literally flew the coop.
Here's the thing. No, this was at City Hall. There are chickens everywhere. And there were 3 tractor trailers with their, cages.
Oh, so a lot of chickens flew the coop.
So the French farmers, the geniuses that they are, went and protested the American embargo by taking their chickens to the French, like their city hall. It was like the county seat kind of thing. And I asked a guy, I said, "Hey, what is going on here?" And he says, "Well, but, he told me about the embargo." And he says, "So our chickens are completely worthless. We got to let them go."
So they just dumped them at City Hall.
They dumped 3 trucks worth of chickens at City Hall and then left.
So this nice American decides he's going to take care of the problem by taking one of the chickens home.
So we're talking. So there are 4 of us now. The 4, I think we were all Americans. Maybe there's a Canadian sprinkled in there. I can't remember. These 4 Americans. We're talking to this guy, and that's amazing. And so you guys are just leaving? And I said, "Can we take one of the chickens?" He's like, "Hey, I'm not doing anything with it. Oh, whatever. Who cares?" So so my buddy puts a chicken in his bag. We had like shoulder bags, right? So he puts a chicken in his bag. We take the bus to the train station. We take the train all the way home. The chicken is kind of like rustling around. And everybody on the subway is like, what in the hell are you doing? We get back to the apartment. It had literally laid an egg in the bag. This is not a joke. I have photographic proof of this. Laid an egg in the bag. We took it into the kitchen. We're like, okay, well, here's dinner, I guess. But none of us had ever slaughtered a chicken before. I won't describe exactly how I killed this chicken, but I will say it was more traumatic for me even than the chicken. It was not great. And then we that was in the kitchen, and then we took it in the bathroom and kind of dressed it in the tub.
Plucking a chicken's not easy.
No, it was not clean. It was not safe, but we did eat some chicken soup that night. And
was it good?
It was not.
Chicken
Thank
was
you.
Not good.
Thank you for asking. It was not great. The egg was pretty good, though.
I kind of want to see, like, if you've got time, you ought to pull up that picture, find that picture, and we ought to include it.
They are not easy to look at.
Even the egg in the bag.
The egg in the bag is one thing, but like for somebody who knows what they're doing,
you've got all the gruesome, you've got all the carnage pictures too.
Yeah, no. If somebody who knew what they were doing looked at the pictures of us slaughtering the chicken, they would like report us to whatever authority.
I don't think I want to see that. Has the statute of limitations expired? I hope.
I'm sure. But yeah, no. Since then, that is the biggest animal I've killed since then.
Yeah.
So. There you go.
I've slaughtered a few chickens and some rabbits. Yeah,
it's not a fun thing to do if you're not used to it.
Yeah, it's messy.
So
that's
there
why
you go.
That's why I get all my meat at Costco. And
so yeah, if you've ever heard the cliche about the French and their they call them grèves, the protests, or what do you call it when people go on strike? When you go on strike. It's a whole thing. They love them. They do them all the time, and that was their grève that day, I guess.
That's a good story. I like that.
There you go, Chris. All right, let's go. I'll see you.
Have a good one. That's funny.